Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured
30 seconds.
them with fellow warriors by serving them through mental health and wellness programs
How's your
and by
CRM
empowering them
functionality
to
coming
live
back?
on their own terms.
I was
Knowledge
finally able to log in
Join us
today.
at
Oh, I got logged in. It's
woundedwarriorproject.org.
Yeah, it
Heart
kicks you off.
attacks and strokes don't stay home.
I still can't
When
get
seconds
any
count, call
past.
911.
You gotta clear your
the
cache.
safest place to be.
Okay.
Visit Heart.org.
Wouldn't-
Anything from April 3rd is gone.
Brought to you by the American Heart Association.
WWDB, Philadelphia, the E-Talk station.
Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole, she's Sarah Time, and she's Stacy Mitchell. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018, and we have got a ton of stuff to be talking through today. The first is what's going to happen with rates after this Middle Eastern conflict between Iran and Israel. A home services petition for the commission case was denied by the Supreme Court. We've got a new letter from Freddie Mac about what's going to happen with agent commissions and financing. And believe it or not, Philadelphia is ranked a top 10 city to buy a fixer-upper. So buyers and sellers should be listening to this carefully. But first, need some engineering help here?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
I can't hear,
She's
but
having some headphone issues,
can
but
you hear me on the microphone?
we can hear you great.
Okay, good.
So with this Middle Eastern conflict, I think that rates did not have a good week last week.
Mm-hmm.
The CPI data came in 0.1% higher than where it was anticipated, and that caused rates to touch 7. And then we've got this conflict going on. I mean, it was Saturday night, everything kind of happened. Fortunately, a lot of these drones got shut down. But that's not what we're here to talk about, because there's a question now of, is this going to slow the Fed down even more with rate cuts if the U.S. gets involved in this conflict? There's conflicting opinions about this. We saw the 10-year yield jump up higher than it's been since the beginning of the year. So, the big question right now is, what's the bond market going to do? Because the bond market will ultimately determine where rates go. And in my view, what's safe to say right now is that if you're holding out for rates to come down, you probably should stop holding on to that belief. What do you two think about all this as we see this reaction to the CPI data, the Middle East conflict, and a couple other things happening?
Yeah, I mean, it was disappointing to see the rates hit 7. I think what we've been telling clients this entire year is that while there has been talk about at some point in the year some rate cuts, like, only time will kind of tell if and when and how much that happens, as well as if it does happen, how that kind of plays out for offers and what that still does to your monthly payment. So I know I had been kind of talking to clients about things dancing in that mid to upper 6s, and honestly wasn't anticipating it hitting 7 right now, but here we are.
Right, yeah. I wasn't expecting that either, but given the inflation that came in higher, everything else that's going on, and especially with the oil prices climbing, I mean, it's really going to affect everything. So the positive thing is that there's a lot of financial products out there for our clients to investigate, where maybe they do an adjustable mortgage, where the ARM is fixed at 5 or 7 years. I had a client just lock in at 6.125. So talk to your lenders, find out what's available for you and what makes sense to get into, the perfect monthly payment. And
What did
also,
they lock into on the ARM? 6.1?
6.125.
Nice.
Yeah, right? And then also consider that home prices are rising. That's going to continue no matter what the interest rates are. So, there's no perfect time. There absolutely is no perfect time. The perfect time is a couple of years ago, based on what my clients say that didn't buy a couple of years ago. So, and unfortunately they missed out. So if if you continue to wait, you're gonna pay higher because the home prices are gonna go up. So talk to your lenders, find out what kind of financial products they can offer you.
If you look at what Fortune magazine said, specifically, increased tension in the Middle East following Iran's attack on Israel likely gives the Federal Reserve even more cause to slow rate cuts, as a spike in oil prices could disrupt the central bank's battle against inflation, and that's according to Capital Economics. So, that's one school of thought here. Now, other people are saying this might cause rates to actually come down a little bit, and regardless of that, you look at all these things happening. We can't control what happens in the Middle East. We can't control what happens with oil prices. We've got an election coming up that's going to be pretty hotly. It hasn't really ramped up yet because there's not like a big primary battle like you normally see. Once the convention season comes around and the summer hits, you're going to see this election really take hold because there's a lot of unhappy people right now on both sides of all these issues that we're dealing with, and people are uncertain about the economy. So my view is this, that I wouldn't bet on rates coming down, to your point, but you also got to look at the equity you're losing out on, Stacey. You said home prices are going to go up, right? That's a major factor for a lot of people. Look at the people that have been waiting since like 21 or 22. I mean, they've lost out on tens of thousands of dollars in equity. And then you got to determine where you're actually living and what that looks like. So, the folks that said you might see 5 at the end of the year, I mean, I think they're kind of wrong at this point. Like, I'm really not. If we get back into the 6s, that would be great. But if rates go lower, that's going to blow up inflation. So it really demonstrates that these low rates people keep, I would say, fantasizing about in 2024 because they're not coming back. What's ended up happening is that it's almost put like these rose-colored glasses on. They're hoping for something that's not going to happen. Now, the positive of this, and I think this is a major opportunity, I'm clear we're going to see inventory continue to climb with these rates coming in where they are. If you look at the new listings data, and if you look at where we were, this time last year. So last year it was that like savagely unhealthy number. We were seeing no new listings coming to the market. So in 2022, year to date, we've seen, or at this time last year, we saw 67,229 new homes come to the market. Last year was 48,556. This year, so far in 2024, the same period of time, and this goes through April 15th, it's 66,786 new listings. So still obviously a lot lower than the pre-pandemic numbers. However, this is a step in the right direction, and we saw a really large bounce. And I'm clear that's going to continue because people are realizing they can't hold out and just they can't lock into these rates. We're going to see people that have to move, that want to move. They're going to make a decision based on that. So I see that as the opportunity for folks that have been holding out and waiting. And it's also going to be better for agents because I think it's going to be easier to navigate the market. So what are you two seeing with inventory? Like what how do you see these higher rates? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Am I wrong? Tell me more.
I mean, I think even with the higher rates, the competition is fierce, and
well, 2022 was fierce, so you're absolutely right.
It's not it's not causing people to hold back, or for the most part, or at least for the winning offers are still ones that are very strong, and they're not taking their price down to make up for the difference in interest rate. There's enough buyers out there that are still
plenty of competition.
Yeah.
We're still in like double-digit multiple offers.
Yeah.
There was 12 offers. I mean, that is exactly where we are today. It's kind of like the asking price is the starting point, and you just go up from there. You still have to waive all those contingencies for the most part. That's what the winning offers. That's what listing agents are seeing as far as winning, and sellers are seeing as far as winning offers.
Yep.
So, and I think it's going to continue this way because there are plenty of buyers, and every day new buyers enter the market for some reason or another. Motivation, that's the key to this whole thing. But I don't see where it is going to change as far as, I don't think the interest rates, I don't think they're going to adjust them anytime soon. Maybe not even this year because of all these extenuating situations that are happening. I think it's too risky, like you said, Tom. It's going to wreck inflation even more, where they're still trying to get it to that 2% magical number. But the other thing, I'm still seeing that my buyers are the ones that I'm currently working with are incredibly motivated.
Mm-hmm.
there is more opportunity, I feel, and they feel also, for them out there. Houses are popping up even at random times. Like typically the normal life cycle is they come on Thursday or Friday. We'll see stuff coming on Monday. Have
Mhm.
our offers in by Tuesday.
Yep.
So it's so random at this point, and it just defies logic. So when
Mhm.
people ask me, can you bring comps? What are you seeing? It doesn't, I know the data doesn't support what's really happening out there.
Mhm.
I can bring you all the comps you want, but you're really competing against other buyers, and
Right.
it does defy logic.
Absolutely. Like you can run all the numbers, you can pull all the comps, you can show where mathematically you
Right.
could have things make sense, but that doesn't put in the emotion factor that buyers have. And
I love how you said that.
Mhm.
Because
Like-
that's the piece that nobody can determine.
right, like you can't calculate that out.
Right. And but that's where you get the over asking price, the waiving of
Mm-hmm.
of inspections and other things. It's that buyer's emotional response. So, and you're competing against buyers. You're not competing against sellers. And I always have to remind my clients that.
Right.
So, and I think when you look at that, there's obviously things to do to win an offer. We've gone over this at length. There's really 10 points that you can feasibly do to win an offer. But if you're having trouble finding something, we'll be going over this as well. Expanding your search area, looking for homes with an elevated days on market, meaning like more than like 7 or 10, which sounds silly, but that's where offers are often accepted in a lot of cases. So those strategies are important, and that's where a buyer agent who really believes in the process can shine and educate their clients up front. What I find fascinating is Lance Lambert from the Resi Club. He put together something called the lock-in effect, and it's a chart across the 50 largest U.S. housing markets calculated by Zillow. So he puts how many homeowners are in there, mortgage-free homeowners, then mortgage-free and ready homeowners. So what that means is homeowners who are not locked in, they can afford to buy in today's market and don't have an outstanding mortgage. That has to do with like income, right, and their ability to afford something. And the latter criterion matters, given that almost all the outstanding mortgages at the moment have rates below today's current 30-year fixed average nationally, which is coming in just above 7%. So if you look at the Philadelphia area, and just to give some perspective, for the U.S., there's 84.7 million homeowners, 34.7 are mortgage-free homeowners, 10.775 million are mortgage-free and ready, and that means there's 41% of homeowners are mortgage-free and 13% can afford something. That's the average, right? So you have about 13% of the population, which that's kind of normal in terms of who makes a move every year anyway. Like you only have 5% of the population that's really considering a decision. Philadelphia is coming in a little higher, so this is good news. You have 1.644 million homeowners. 637,000 are mortgage-free, 259,000 are mortgage-free and ready, meaning there's 16% that are potentially not locked in. That trend's on the higher side of this. Only a few major cities come in higher. Chicago's notable. That's one of them. They're at 17%. And then you've got, it's a lot of smaller cities. I mean, besides Houston's at 18%. And then you have like Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. So, we're in a better spot here because the bottom of the list, you have any guesses who the bottom of the list is and the percentage of homeowners that are not locked in?
I don't know.
So it's all in California, the top 5.
Oh, geez.
San Jose, LA, San Francisco, San Diego's number 4, Riverside, Seattle, Denver, Colorado. So a lot of these like hot markets, Phoenix, Arizona, Boston's at 8%. So we're in a better spot here than other markets. So I think that's pretty encouraging. And that's where you got to dig a little deeper with these folks and get to the motivation, and also like understand like, hey, what's your payment now? Where are you trying to get to? What are the pain points? So that to me is encouraging. Now there is some other data that came out that monthly payments have reached an all-time high, and they've climbed 11% year over year. This is a report from Redfin that shows the median monthly housing payment is coming in at $2,747 a month. So that's the median. That's a pretty big median. And so seeing that, I mean, but you're not feeling the lull in demand here, is what I'm hearing you two say from your what you have going on in the field.
No, I'm not seeing any. I'm seeing fever pitched. Actually, people are really trying to scramble to get into their homes. I don't know if it's because they want to get in before the election. I don't know what it is.
Right.
Or they're tired of, sitting on the sidelines waiting.
Mhm.
And I know a couple of them, they do have, motivation, like baby on the way.
Yeah.
They just got married and they're tired of renting. So they do have motivation, but some of the folks are coming back into the fold and they just want to buy something. I
Right.
think they see where the value is.
Mhm.
It's hard to rely on the stock market, and that really isn't the economy. And to make your own, pseudo savings account, buy some real estate.
Mhm.
They're seeing that if you bought 2 years ago and you turn around and sell now,
Yeah.
the return on your investment is bigger than what you can get in the stock market.
Right.
Well, and I think you said it there, Stacy, is that there's always going to be people that move. I mean, you can't time having a baby, or you can't time what people want to do with their lives. I mean, I had a conversation with someone earlier today, and they just said, "Hey, look, I'm making a decision to sell my property, and I want to go travel." That's not a financially sound decision, but that's what this person wants to do. And you hear this all the time, right? And some people are tired of owning homes, like the amount of work that's involved in owning a property. So you can't coach those things. Now, what an agent can do, so we got all these things happening. So what are you doing right now that's been the most effective for your business in getting clients to get to the next step? Because it's always like, hey, I saw a house, I'm interested, but that usually isn't the house they buy, right? Is that fair to say? So you identify someone earlier in the decision making process, and this could be a seller or a buyer. What do you do to coach them through all this? What's some of the most effective plays you're running right now from a client interaction standpoint? Because you think about all the stuff we just talked about. Most people are going to see this and be like, I'm not moving. But there's people that are going to do it anyway. So what are you doing? I mean, you just sold 2 or 3 homes. You sold one last week. You're writing offers. So you guys are in the arena doing these things. What's working right now? What's your most effective play you're running with clients?
Sitting down and getting in front of them and going through the entire process.
Mhm.
And what it looks like, and different options as far as finding inventory, and also how to put together an offer.
Mhm.
And I think setting expectations is key,
Mm-hmm.
and getting feedback of what they've heard already from the market. What have you heard from friends? Have you had friends that bought? What are they saying? What did they do?
Yeah.
And just getting their feedback and seeing how motivated they are. To me, that's been working.
Yeah, I mean, I think for buyers also taking the time to go through both, it's not just pricing, like really stressing how important terms are, because when you're in these multiple offer situations, most people have pretty squeaky clean terms. So kind of giving clients like options, like, listen, this is what is ultimately, if it's a property that just hit the market and we know that there's multiple offers in, this is probably a pretty good breakdown of how they're coming in. You're going to have a couple that are right there at the list price that have the different contingencies. You're going to have some that are a step up from that in, a piece aside of it. And then like the winning offer is going to, both sides of it be strong. So, yeah, just really kind of setting the stage with where the expectations are going to be at. And then also kind of almost putting them in the seller's shoe. Like when they're sitting there, they've got these different offers coming in. They're looking to get to the settlement table with the number that is written, with a smooth transaction, without like a whole bunch of like stuff that pops up
Mhm.
between now and then. So what could make things pop up? And then kind of like explaining that to them, and just so that they can see where the seller is coming from.
I think that's perfect. I love that, because if you put the buyers in the seller's position,
Mhm.
and the light bulb comes on.
Right.
Like, and also I gotta always remind them, you're not competing with the seller.
Right.
You're not. Like, the seller, they listed their home at this price point. They know they're gonna get multiple offers.
Yeah.
For the most part. So you're not competing with them.
Yeah.
And they don't care that, the carpeting is dirty.
Right. Right.
They listed the house that way.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure they know the carpet's dirty.
Right.
But that doesn't have anything to do with it at this point.
Right.
It has to do with, you're competing against other buyers for the home. There are
Mhm.
cosmetic things that you can change and update, as time goes, but this is the house in the condition that it's in.
Right.
If you want to go in on this house and it's the one for you, then we have to figure out how to present your offer in the most strong way as humanly possible within your means, you
Yeah.
know, as your
Exactly.
comfort level.
So you guys focused on the buyer side. I'm going to look at it from the seller's perspective because, and Stacey, you said it, getting in front of people and telling them what's going on. I mean, there is so much bad information in the market. I was in an appointment today. They interviewed 2 other agents. Neither of them gave a price or they shared a property analysis when they went in there. So this is a listing appointment, right? And it's a highly priced listing appointment. So, and then I think, the other thing that I found interesting was I got a comment from one of the sellers, and I'm wearing my usual attire. You guys dress like a weenie, right? It works. Hey, you're the only person that dresses like me anymore. This is literally what I'm hearing from the seller. And this is a 7-figure listing that I'm walking into. So then I think it's educating them on here's what's going on. And from, this was something I helped another agent on our team with. The initial feedback was they were a little aggressive on their price. They didn't see it going that high. I didn't get any pushback on the numbers that looked like it would be a fair market value from sitting down with these folks. So to me, it's education. Like, hey, here's the trends in the market. Here's the data, right? Like Sarah, like you said, here's the data of listings or offers that win. Here's what I can tell you. I've lost out on X amount of homes when the clients didn't do X, Y, and Z, right? And then sometimes people still won't listen until it works. And then, or they lose out on too many, right? To me, it's all about education. I don't think you get as much pushback on pricing as agents worry about. What they really care about is what's the timing, what's going on right now. We've got all this NAR settlement news. How's the process work? It's education, because the big stressors for folks are getting their home ready, getting it on the market, dealing with showings and everything else. We were talking before the show how like some sellers, they just sign the first offer, even though they might be able to get a little more, they just want it done, right? And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, that's someone's perspective, it's their asset. So the more people you can talk to, and the more people you meet with, and then you have to, see, the key is though, this is what no one talks about, you gotta execute at the appointment, actually deliver a valuable appointment, because when you don't, it's not, have you ever had an appointment that you knew wasn't going well,
Yeah.
right? How long does it take to see it's not going well?
Not long.
A couple minutes, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to catch them at the beginning with how you show up, professional greeting, right? Xander from our team talks about this all the time. Looking someone in the eye, shaking their hand and saying hello. But then it can't just be that. It's got to be facts, data, education, I'm here to help you, and go over what their goals are. And if you have that approach, you're going to win more than you lose, but you got to be meeting people all the time. Like it's literally like, if you want to sell, you've got some big goals. What's your appointment goal for the week?
Oh, at least 10, 12.
And that includes showings, right?
Yes.
So to me, I'm looking to set 5 appointments a week. New people I'm meeting with, right? You're looking to be in the field and have 12 opportunities to sell a house.
Yes.
What's your appointment goal?
10.
10, right? So that this is not someone that's sitting around waiting for like a deal to fall in their hands and then like hope it goes well. And in a market like this, the more people you meet with, the better off you are. Because there's going to be a lot, and then there's going to be a lot of like client maintenance. It's not like you're done with these people in 30 days. So that to me is going to be the most important thing as we head into this confusing time here, where there's a lot of stuff happening, and it's not going to get any less confusing with this election coming up. I can tell you that.
Right.
So let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We are going to talk about what I see as positive news from Fannie Mae. This is going very under the radar here. I don't even know if I was talking to Brian, our sales manager, about it today. We're going to share that. I got some lender insights on it. We also have some news on the commission lawsuit from NAR next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
In real estate, do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line.
For the best local mortgage service and great rates
Such
on your
those two
money,
offers
look
later.
no further than Mortgage America.
We've
she
been
do this?
operating in the greater
doing okay.
Philadelphia area
She's
got a lot of
for 40
trust, so that
years
helps.
with a focus on smooth,
Yeah,
easy
this last
access to
one
home
was
purchasing. Whether you're a
more of a
first-time buyer, upsizing or
gut punch than I
downsizing,
feel
or
like
just
the first one,
refinancing,
but-
we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access
You got my
to
message, Stacey?
subsidized
You
interest
just ignored
rates.
me.
Oh, no.
Pre-approval is
I
free,
did.
no cost
When
or
I pulled in,
commitments.
I
To
just
learn
didn't have-
more, visit our website at
They wanna meet on, Saturday morning
or give us a
at
call
10.
at 610-439-8000.
They own a house in
We always
Lansdowne.
have a
They may
person
or may not be
available
selling, and they
take
want to
your
upgrade to a
call
bigger
with
place.
around-the-clock
Okay.
human service.
I can do that 'cause
Purchase
I
your
have an
home
open
with
house
the
in media
personalized
Alright.
local
at
service
12.
you find at Mortgage America.
Mortgage America's equal housing lender, NMLS 128501.
I'm Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a
good.
real estate
So
agent
fucking
in the
annoying
greater
doing
Philly
that.
area,
I'm
I have a
so sick of
special
this.
offer
I
for
can't
you.
even.
Our team did
I've been sitting on it, like,
$165
it
million
takes me forever to
of
do
volume
anything.
in
I'm like, oh, let me-
2021,
I gotta
making
look
us
up his
the
number,
number
and
one
then
Remax
I don't
team in
like. I want to
Pennsylvania
send an email,
and
and
a
it's
top
like
1% team nationally.
It's
Our
looking
agents
up
love us
numbers,
because
like,
we offer them a successful
had-
career, a great
I got
life,
these
and
people
an
under
unbeatable
contract, like, and
culture.
we're extending
Agents
and
who've been with
closing
us
in
for
May,
at least
but
a year
I didn't have
average
a phone
30
number.
plus
And I
sales.
didn't answer your question.
Even
7
our
days.
brand new agents
I
average
almost lost
17
a listing
or
opportunity.
more
Like I
sales a
emailed you
year.
twice over the
We
weekend, and
offer
the emails
proven
don't come in.
systems and expert training.
Right?
We help you set more appointments and sell more
Brian had
houses.
somebody.
And I don't know
Now
how many
here's the
people
offer.
text through
If
that
you
are
don't have
getting
a
the
real
e-alerts.
estate
You know what I
license
mean?
yet,
Nobody
we
knows.
offer real estate scholarships so you can get one for free.
I'm not happy.
Check it out at
Clearly.
Like, what could be so fatal
realestatescholarshipprogram.com
to the website
or visit the
that
Tom
it would be
Toole
down
Sales Group
7
at
days?
Remax Mainline at tomtoole.com.
I have a
That's
theory.
tomtoolewithane.com. Get more
like
out of your
it's like
real
been
estate
most of my
career,
days,
and
like,
remember the
a
real
week.
estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom. 30 seconds.
You shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage
This is
programs,
going
including
with
first-time buyers.
Sarah and all them. I'm not Sarah, Brooke and
For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or
Why'd
apply
you tell me
online
green
at
service?
mymortgageamerica.com.
Yeah.
NMLS
I
128501.
like the community.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacey Mitchell. She's Sarah Timon. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline, the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania since 2018, and we are streaming live on YouTube. We're going to be talking about this news from Freddie Mac, excuse me. No one's talking about this. I saw a couple under the radar things yesterday. This was issued yesterday. Maybe it's because it was tax day yesterday. It might have had something to do with it. Very, very important here. So if you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications, and if you want to talk to one of these two ladies about your real estate needs, make sure to click the link in the comments to schedule a call. So I want to go over this letter first. I mean, the commission lawsuit we can talk about, but this came out yesterday, and it was to Freddie Mac sellers, and the subject is commissions paid to real estate agents. And here's what it says. It's like 3 paragraphs. It comes from Kevin Kaufman, the senior vice president of single family seller engagement. I don't know what that means. Must be like some department over there or something. There have been recent inquiries concerning a proposed settlement agreement subject to court approval entered into by the National Association of Realtors in the Burnett et al. And Morrill et al. Cases. The industry letter addresses the current treatment of property seller paid buyer agent fees under our interested parties contribution requirements. So how agents get paid. So in guide section 5501.5, property sellers are permitted to make financing concessions toward the borrower's closing costs in maximum amounts between 2 and 9% of the property value. Fees or costs customarily paid by the property seller according to local convention are not subject to these financing concession limits. Buyer agent fees have historically been fees customarily paid by the property seller or property seller's real estate agent, and as such, they are currently excluded from these financing concession limits. If these fees continue to be customarily paid by the property seller according to the local convention, they will not be subject to financing concession limits. It is our standard practice to continuously evaluate our requirements to determine whether updates are appropriate based on changes to the market and industry. We will continue to monitor and assess the impact of the proposed NAR settlement and other real estate agent commission lawsuits to determine if any updates to our requirements are necessary. So, what do you two think about this? Are you confused?
I'm confused.
I guess it. So is it saying like if it is no longer if it's no longer the local convention that the seller is paying the fees, then even if the seller were to pay the commissions, it would no longer be excluded from the percentage that they're allowed to pay out. So like if the seller was going to be paying the commission for the buyer's agent, and let's say there were like inspection things that came up and there was like a seller assist, like all of a sudden what they would be able to offer would be less. Is that correct?
So I'll tell you what it says. I got a source on this because this is very confusing. Eamon Cantwell from R5 Home Loans. You guys know him. So he sent me this like yesterday at 2:00. Like, my man, thank you. Major credit for sending this to me. And I'll just read the conversation. Does this say what I think it says? It doesn't mean that you can finance a commission, at least not yet. But what it does mean is that on an average conventional deal, you are capped at 3% seller's assist, which we already know. Sometimes they go up to 6%. It depends on closing costs. This says that the concession for buyer's agent compensation doesn't get factored into that number. So as long as an appraisal is good, you could have a 3% seller concession, and the seller can pay a X to Y percent commission for the buy side agent. So it's a baby step, but important nonetheless. So what they're moving towards is it won't count towards the closing cost because it's not the norm. So there could be an additional concession outside of that isn't capped on the borrower's closing costs and maximum amounts.
I'm still confused.
So it's not good. So you have your seller's assist, right? I'm going to give some round numbers here.
Okay.
Let's say the total closing costs for the buyer are $10,000. It's never that even, but let's say that for hypotheticals here. You're not capped at a $10,000 seller concession. You could have an additional concession that wouldn't count towards that closing cost allotment if the appraisal's okay. So that's obviously the key here. That's where it gets a little dicey because when you start jacking up the appraisal number,
Right.
it doesn't really help. A small step here. I'm surprised we heard anything from Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae.
Right.
That was the biggest shocker here. So that's one component of this. It's a start. It doesn't mean that this stuff can start happening yet. There's going to be a lot to unpack here. Now we've got some other news coming out of the Supreme Court. But what do you think about that move by Freddie Mac there? I mean, are you happy? Do you feel like you'd like something a little more aggressive? What do you think here, Stacy and Sarah?
Well, I'm surprised that they actually put something out so quickly. But I think that they're trying to get in front of this, which is always a good thing. Because there needs to be options.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I think it's positive that this is it's a small step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think that talking about it and like addressing some of these different things, so maybe some stuff can be ironed out prior to changes going into effect is definitely better than finding out afterwards that there's going to be additional hurdles that maybe weren't anticipated.
Mm-hmm. My hope is that I think mortgage lenders are going to have to do something because this is really going to cause a lot of problems for folks because if they're not I don't know how this is going to all work because we know that most buyers don't have the cash to pay these commissions. Although we've seen it happen with a couple people. We've had people on our team. We've had folks at our firm. I mean, I know people out of state. They have had buyers write checks for the balance of commission. It's happening, and there hasn't been a lot of pushback on it yet. I think it's going to be tougher when people don't have the cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think those situations that happened, that's not the norm. I mean,
it's the start. We don't know. The sample size is too small.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the majority of people that I'm working with now are so cash strapped.
Yes.
They just don't have the extra funds. They just don't have it. So, and that's part of their concern too. They want to get something under contract before a situation really changes. But yeah, I agree that something has to be done. I think that the lenders are definitely considering what's going to happen because this could be very negative across the whole industry. So getting things in place before everything changes in July is the way to go, because you don't want to try to catch up after July and try to,
Right.
you know, right the ship after that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at this. I think there's going to be a lot of the people, like the buyer is winning here in a lot of cases, because I've never seen the industry so buyer focused before for the 2+ decades we've been doing this. But I look at this and I see what goes on with listing agents sometimes, right? And to me, a good listing agent is going to be fighting for the buyer agent, because it's so much easier selling a house when you've got everyone showing it for you than if you're going to shut these people out.
Mhm.
And it's also going to be better for the seller, right? Like, imagine you have someone under contract, or you do, Sarah, and especially like, forget, you know, the high price stuff. I think I look at the lower priced homes. I think that's where you really run into these issues a lot, where people literally have like enough for a 3% down payment or a 3.5% down payment, and that's it. And they're getting an FHA loan or a conventional loan, and they're scraping pennies together to get into a house that's $200,000-$300,000, which is below our median here. So a good listing agent is going to talk about, hey, this is going to get you more because there's going to be more competition. So that's my hope. Now, unfortunately, we've dealt with good and bad listing agents, all of us here. I don't know what's going to be said. That's what I'm most concerned about as we move forward here.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know what's on the other side. But I always, you know, when I'm talking with sellers, if they question what's happening, you know, I always encourage, yes, it's definitely positive to offer compensation to the other side.
Right.
Because to work with another agent to make a smooth transaction, that's everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's keeping the transaction together.
Right.
When you have to negotiate, there's so much that could potentially happen. So to have a competent person on the other side, it really makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
I agree. And I mean, it's called cooperating agent for a reason.
For a reason.
So, and you know, that's probably what's going to be most important to realize here. So with that in mind, so we had another development in the commission lawsuit case. Now this is very fascinating. So Home Services, so Warren Buffett is the owner of Home Services. Home Services are like a subsidiary of his companies. And the U.S. Supreme Court denied the petition filed by Home Services to overturn the verdict on Monday. And the verdict's going to stand, and that leaves Home Services as the only defendant who has not reached a settlement. Meanwhile, the plaintiffs have filed against Home Services for the entire trebled amount of damages, $5.4 billion with a B dollars, minus the $626.5 million they'll receive through the settlements with NAR, Anywhere, Remax, and Keller Williams. So if Home Services can't reach the settlement, they could be on the hook for $4.7 billion. And you know, the executive vice president of Home Services, Chris Kelly, said he wasn't surprised by the decision, and he firmly believed that the arbitration issue they raised through their petition was an important matter. Given the conflicting interpretation of the Federal Arbitration Act at the circuit court level, we certainly understood the odds in the very limited number of cases the Supreme Court selects. It was just one of many paths we believe were important to pursue. So I'm not totally shocked by this here. I'm wondering if Home Services is going to settle, and that's my big question. I mean, how do you think this plays out? I mean, they kind of got left out to dry here by NAR and all this. It's unfortunate this is the way this went. So how do you see this goes? This is like the last piece to fall here with this case.
Well, yeah, since there was already so many other settlements, I'm curious about whether they're going to try to settle. I mean, they could be on the hook for, I mean, that's a huge number.
Right.
4.7 billion, and if they do decide to roll the dice and let it go to, appeals, then it still could be the same outcome. So I would assume that they're gonna try to negotiate some type of settlement to mitigate their losses, but it looks like, that would probably be a path forward for them at this point. I don't know if a big company like that would be willing to risk it.
They also have a market cap of $896 billion. So I think that's what's, every one of these cases, we got the maximum amount we could get, right? That you heard that from Anywhere. You didn't hear it with the Remax settlement, but it looks like that was the case. You heard it with NAR, and they basically said we were going to have to like use that tool of bankruptcy, which they should have done, but they didn't. If we had to continue down this path, so I think this has a lot to do with it. They're just looking at what's the maximum amount we can get out of these people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my view at least.
So if they don't come to like an agreement and settle, like the cap would be 4.7 billion that they would be left with. And they've already used most channels that they can go.
I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. I mean, that's what we don't know. I'd imagine there's other stuff happening here.
Because I would assume as they start to run out of avenues to go down, settlement would seem more and more.
Well, they could
Appeal?
still appeal the case.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
so
I think that's what they're doing, right? They're
So-
appealing it.
here's where we are. So here's the latest. So back in February, Home Services filed a petition with the Supreme Court arguing that the 8th U.S. Circuit of Appeals oversteps its decision to reject arbitration agreements and proceed with the class action lawsuit. Then Home Services asked the Supreme Court to reject the trial and its verdict, arguing that an arbitration agreement was in place and should have been enforced, and that the 8th U.S. Circuit of Appeal dismissed that. And then the appellate court also noted that Home Services had effectively waived its right to arbitration by litigating the case for nearly a year before filing its motion. And the goal of filing the petition with the Supreme Court was getting either getting the case thrown out, which didn't happen, or ensuring the uniform nationwide application of the Federal Arbitration Act. Now, you do have to go through all these steps, even though if you don't think it's going to happen. Any attorney's going to tell you that. Like, if you know, even with small stuff, right? Like, you got to, okay, I'm going to file for arbitration. No one wants to go. I'm going to do this. Nobody wants to go. The Supreme Court dismissed their petition, and that means the verdict stands. And the lack of any further comment leaves the second objection in limbo. The Supreme Court ruling follows the rejection of another Home Services petition to decertify this is a class action suit, and that was dismissed back in March. So the question in this article, and BAM did a great job putting this together. So what options are left? They can continue to fight the ruling. Judge Bowe has set a due date of April 23rd for post-verdict motions and final responses, including a request for a new trial. Home Services is also embroiled in a conflict with Sitzer Burnett over the latter's request for the damages, and they've responded to the request by arguing it's too soon to issue a judgment. And the plaintiffs then pushed back and accused Home Services of asking the court to deprive the class of many millions of dollars in interest to which it's entitled. So, I don't know. I think this is going to settle. I can't imagine, but they have the biggest bankroll here out of anybody.
Right.
That's the difference. I mean, this is not just a real estate company. This is a
Right.
gigantic corporation that has a market cap of over $800 billion.
Yeah, so it really just depends on how far they want to push it, because
Right.
it really it doesn't seem like it's going to hurt them at all.
Right.
Financially, it's not.
It's a drop in the bucket.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's the thing here, right? And so,
Yeah.
I mean, they're looking at it like, hey, like let's just we can do what we want to do. I mean, I would love to see the verdict get overturned. I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of commission lawsuit post effects as they still continue to happen here. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of a fixer-upper purchase, because Philadelphia was ranked the number 10 city in the country for buying a fixer-upper, which we're talking about affordability and finding a home. This is something that more people than ever are considering. So we'll unpack that next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Getting your mortgage from a big or online
So Eric
bank.
had to go
At
to
Mortgage
DC
America,
last
we
night
have
because there was like a
access to
big
bank
meeting,
money,
I think
but
in like
with
the Pentagon or something
personalized
today.
and detailed service
And
of a local
he
bank.
woke up
We
this
are here
morning
in your
and
community
had
and ready to
pink
serve
eye.
with fast settlements,
Get away
low
from me.
down
He had
payment
to
options,
cancel
and
it. He
first-time
didn't
homebuyer
want to. So
programs.
he drove down there last night and then he couldn't
Free,
go to the
no
meeting today.
cost
Oh,
of
man.
commitment.
Does Maddie
For
have
more
it?
information,
Maddie had it
visit
like
our
2 weeks
website
ago.
at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
We're Jersey Westbrook, NLS 12850.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your
You guys are the
income?
worst.
Whether you
I
have
was
a
like, did you have
license
to
or
call and
not,
say,
call
like,
us
I
today
can't
at
come 'cause I have pink eye?
610-692-6976.
He's like, I said I have conjunctivitis, which like is
That's
the
what it's
guy,
called.
but like.
You can usually, if you like go to like an urgent care, they'll give you like a prescription like right away.
The Tom
Yeah,
Toole Sales
that's
Group
what,
is the number one
he had
RE/MAX
a
team in Pennsylvania
appointment
with
at
over
urgent care at, like,
165
2:40 or
million
something.
in volume for
You
You had to drive home with
2021.
that though, because
I'm
it's like,
Tom
like if
Toole,
you
and
have a
our
son,
team has achieved
like
that
hitting her,
kind of
like it's
success
really
by
hard to
being
see.
a great place to
See
work
where
with
contacts are in
and
there?
to work
No.
for.
Oh, let's
No
set
one
up.
knows
Yeah.
Greater
Let's use
Philly
more
better than we
sunglasses.
do. We know real
If you-
estate,
if you pink
but
eye,
more
like, yeah,
importantly,
we're-
we're
Yeah.
real people. We
I have
hire
the
the
drops
best
for the
agents
last- I
and we
got
give
this
them
like
all
years
the
ago.
tools to
Yeah.
succeed.
If I ever feel like
Even our
sometimes
brand
like
new
kids are coming, I'm
agents
just
sell
like,
17,
Just
24 homes
get
a
'em.
year.
Well, we do
because
have-
you know when you're getting it. Like, you, I mean,
Experience
I
in
can
real
because I put
estate.
stuff in my eye
Chance
every day.
deliver a better experience
We
than
do still have
individuals,
drops
and we're a
from when
top
Maddie had it the
1%
other week,
real estate
but
team
I
in the
guess Eric was
country.
just gonna-
We call
I don't know
it
if they're
Toole
adult strength
Service.
though.
We're
Like, I
an
don't know.
advocate,
Yeah, that's what
ally,
she
and
is
advisor.
thinking.
Because this isn't a transaction to us. It's a
Yeah.
relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line
Oh,
at
thank God.
610-692-6976 or visit
That's what you've got to do with
tomtoole.com.
Fun.
That's
6-hour drive for nothing.
tomtoolforme.com. Sell your home for more and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
30 seconds. You shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online
People
banks.
getting your
We're
emails,
a
do you
local
think? Have you got any
Pennsylvania
email
lender with
responses?
loan officers that you can actually
My
meet.
email?
As PHFA's
Well,
number
so
one
I have all
lender, we
the
specialize
lead
in
flow,
all
right? And
residential
then they parse the email. So
10 seconds. Programs.
I have
Down
so
payment
many
options.
undeliverable, like,
Free for your
the mail
approval.
system
Call us at
undeliverable. Like, I can't even read my email. It's been going on for a week. Like, it's been horrible.
How many? Like hundreds?
Yeah, probably 1,000.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Maybe not. All right, welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacy Mitchell. She's Sarah Time, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about the best and worst cities to buy a fixer-upper. Philadelphia was named number 10 on this list in the best cities to buy a home that needs some work. And if you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications, and if you want to schedule a call about your real estate needs with one of these two ladies, make sure to click on the link in the comments. So I found this article very interesting because we're talking about like affordability and people are having to compromise on homes. And I mean, have you had anyone go from like, I want to buy like a move-in ready property to a fixer-upper? Has this happened recently to either of you guys?
I have had that happen.
How did it go? Like, what was the process? Like, give us some perspective here.
So for one of them, these were clients that I've been working with for a very long time. And as the market changed, some things adjusted. They did make adjustments on their end. And I think they were always open to like, small cosmetic things. And then what they actually ended up getting was gonna be like a full rehab. And I think it was just seeing what they could get for their money, and they also weren't afraid of a project. Like, you have to have not everybody can just be like, oh, I'm gonna do a fixer-upper. Like, you have to have the right mentality for it. You have to have some patience. You have to have some vision. You can't. It is not for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone, and you could tell, when you're talking to clients, and they have to have the right vision.
Mm-hmm.
If some of your clients are going in houses and they're like, oh, we could do this and we could do that and we can move this around, they have the vision.
Mhm.
They could do a fixer-upper. But there's many levels of fixer-upper.
Right.
There's full gut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have clients that specifically bought full gut.
Yeah.
Rehab. They wanted to get in, at super low pricing, competing with investors basically, because they knew they were going to do this, but they had the experience, they had the fortitude to do it. So, but they're the only ones. If you're doing a first-time home buyer, oh no, unless
Like the parent is a
Yeah.
contractor or something.
Right. Now I do have some first-time home buyers who have, like, the one of them was a contractor, or they knew, you know what I mean, and they were fine with it, but it wasn't a full gut by any stretch, but it was more like an outdated, like
Yeah.
livable,
Yeah.
but had to be updated.
Yeah.
That's different.
Like, could they move it? Were they doing the work prior to moving in?
Some were moving in and
Mhm.
gonna do the work as
Yeah.
they lived there, and it was more like a house like 70s or 80s frozen in time
Mhm.
house,
Mm-hmm.
which is livable because
Yeah.
somebody just moved out.
Yeah.
It just needs totally updated. But
Yeah.
there's been homes that I've sold where no, you have to do work before they get in.
Well,
And
that's
they
what Eric and I did. We
Mhm.
got one that we did all the work before we moved in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
But see, and that wasn't your first house though, and I think that, and it's also a house I imagine you're planning on living in a long time,
Right.
right? And it's like on probably the street or the area where you want to live, where I think you see more of that because you bought for the location.
Right.
Right. So, and these are the stats to consider here, and I want to make sure we got a couple minutes here. So the average turnkey home median asking price in the U.S. right now is $399,900. The fixer-upper median asking price is $283,000. So that's a 29% savings. And in 20 out of the 50 most popular metros, fixer-uppers can cost up to 50% less. So Philadelphia was named number 10, and it's the best combination of active listings and cost savings. Cities ahead of them were LA, believe it or not, Chicago, Long Beach, Kansas City, Minneapolis, Dallas, Fresno, Baltimore, Louisville, and Philadelphia. And comes from a report called from Storage Cafe, and what they look at here is, they look at the additional costs that buyers may undertake, and obviously this varies from city to city, because you have to look at the rehab cost is probably going to be the same for the most part, but it's what's the price point going to be when you're done. That's probably why LA is number one, because people, like you fix up a home. I mean, we've seen these shows, like they put in like $100 grand, it's like it raises the price like three. I'm like, what kind of ROI is this? This is bananas. So, knowing that Philadelphia's got some opportunities here, we also know that 73% of respondents to a survey earlier in the year from RE/MAX said they would consider purchasing a fixer-upper. How do you help people navigate this? Because like you said, it's not going to be for everybody. It's definitely not for some. I mean, I've done work to homes, but never like a fixer-upper. Like it's not. And you guys went through it. You and Eric, Sarah. So I think that's what's some advice you have for people that are considering a fixer-upper right now?
So I guess there would be a couple pieces. One of them being like timeline, and is it something that you need to do the work prior to, or some of the work prior to, or can you like live through it? And then also, can you potentially balance a mortgage on, because depending on the extent of the renovations, it's not going to happen in 3 weeks. You're looking at, even if it's done at like a quick pace, you're looking at several months if you're doing a full rehab.
Mm-hmm.
So for that time period, can you carry, where else are you going to live? Can you afford to carry both mortgages or rent and mortgage? Always plan for some overrun or for some unforeseen issues, and vet your contractors, and get them in. And honestly, if you're lucky enough to be in a situation where you have time to bring in the contractor before making an offer, best to kind of know your expected costs, because it's, two homes on the same street could be in completely, both of them like fixer-uppers. They could be, it doesn't mean it's apples to apples. So I guess making sure to get a realistic ballpark number of where your prices are going to come in at, and then like line up all those pieces and see if it makes sense.
Well said.
Yeah, that's perfect. Very, very good advice. And also, it again, I go back to, if it's a tradesperson that's buying this for themselves, which I've had that, they know what they're getting into, for the most part, although there could be other things that have to be considered, like is it on a well or septic? And if it's septic, still do your inspections. I had a client buy a house. It was all the contents were included, and it had septic, and we did the septic inspection but waived everything else. Failed septic, so the sellers they had to credit for the new septic. So,
and that's not
that would have been a $35,000
a
expense
great
on
point.
top.
Yeah.
So know what you're getting into is the advice here. Talk to some professionals like one of these two ladies here. So that's what we got for this week's episode. You want to follow Sarah? She's at Ty_Ty Time on Instagram. You can follow Stacy at @2 Mitchko. You can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD, all on Instagram. And we'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.